Okay, Grace Fellowship, we're glad that you're here as we launch into this new series entitled Change. This is the last day of 17. Tomorrow we launch into a new year, and a new year always gives us that kind of opportunity to think about what we want to see differently, what do we want to change about our life and about our year. And we're going to look at Proverbs in this series and what it has to say about our life and what change is necessary in our lives. Keith already mentioned New Year's resolutions and how difficult that is for us to keep with resolutions. But I'm going to challenge you to a resolution that you can do in just a number of weeks and get it completed. In your bulletin, you have this card. Did everybody get a card like this in your bulletin? It says change. On the front of it says change. On the back of it, here's the thing. Proverbs, the book of Proverbs has 31 chapters in it. And the month of January has 31 days. Isn't that awesome? So guess what? My challenge for all of you is to take the book of Proverbs and read one chapter a day for 31 days. At the end of January, that resolution is done. But as we work our way through this series, we're going to be looking at Proverbs and the wisdom that we can gain from Proverbs, and you're going to be joining us. How many of you are willing to do this? One chapter a day for 31 days. How many of you can do this? Okay, I'm challenging you to do this. I'm going to be posting my insights on Facebook, and you can do the same. And when January is done, you are done. But we're going to gain some wisdom from this exercise. And so we're launching out in this series on wisdom. We need to gain a biblical perspective on wisdom. Who needs it? What is it? Who needs it? And how do we get it? So turn to Proverbs chapter 1. If you have a Bible, turn to that. Grab the black Bible that's in front of you. It's on page 527. I'm not going to put it on the screen, so follow along with me. Proverbs talks about wisdom and change. We're going to talk about your words and your attitudes and your character and your life, what needs to change in those areas. So we're going to read the first 7 verses of this book, and then we're going to look at a perspective on wisdom. Now here it goes. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to understand words of insight, to receive instruction in wise dealing, in righteousness, justice, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, knowledge and discretion to the youth. Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance, to understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. And then verse 7 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom. Here's the thing. Change requires choices. All through your life, every day, you're making choices. And if you are right now, you are where you are due to the choices that you have made in your life in the past. Some choices were made that were outside of your control, but how you responded to those choices placed you on a particular path. And the choices that you have made have placed you on a particular path. Every choice creates a fork in the path. And the path you choose by the choice that you make directs your life according to that path, directs the course of your life. You are right now where you are, not through luck or intention, but through choice. What choices are you making? Now, question, have you ever gotten lost? How many of you have ever, all of us have gotten lost at one time or another, right? You've ended up somewhere where you didn't intend to go. Here's the thing about getting lost. You never intended to get lost. Did you? I mean, did you ever get in your car and say, I'm going to get lost today? Or you set out from the house and you say, I'm going to get lost today. That's never our intention to get lost. And yet you got lost just the same. And when did you discover that you were lost? Well, after you were lost, right? You didn't know you were lost until you realized you were lost. And had you known you were going to get lost, had you known that you were getting lost, you would have made different choices not to get lost. You would have asked for directions before you got lost. That is a choice. You would have consulted a map before you set out on the trip. That is a choice. You would have listened to your wife's advice. That is a choice. But you didn't choose that. You chose to trust your own instincts. You chose to make it your own way. You thought you had all the information that you need. Here's the thing about destinations, where you end up in life, friends. Destinations are never reached through intention. Destinations are reached through choices. You never luck your way into, you never intend your way into a destination. You choose your way into a destination. Your life is a journey headed toward a destination made up of choices. And wisdom, as we talk about in this series, wisdom is the ability to make the choices necessary to end up in the right place, to end up at the right destination. You think about all the areas of your life, your finances, your health, your career, marriage, friendships, family. Think about your spiritual growth, your maturity, where you are right now in your relationship with Jesus. People have said to me, I never intended to get addicted. I never intended to drown in debt. I never intended to destroy this relationship. And yet that's where you ended up. I didn't intend to end up here. So how did you end up here? Friends, destinations are never reached through intention. It is reached through choices. And the Bible speaks to all of these areas of life. Proverbs speaks to all the areas that I've just mentioned: health, finances, relationships, discipleship. In some situations, you have specific commands, a direct command to do or not to do something. In other areas, you have general principles and guidelines where you have some freedom to make a particular choice, where you need wisdom. There's a specific ideas. The Bible tells you not to be unequally yoked. When you read the Bible, in the Old Testament and the New Testament, it's pretty clear that God wants you to mate with someone who loves Jesus the way you love Jesus, that shares your faith, that has similar commitments and devotions. The Bible is pretty specific on the kind of person that you should marry. But you know this, and the Bible doesn't tell you who to marry. And so this can be a really difficult decision for many of us at times. You have freedom of choice within the parameters that the Bible gives you. When it comes to money, when it comes to your finances, the Bible has some very general and good guidelines about making money, how to work hard, saving money, saving consistently, spending wisely, giving generously, all kinds of principles about money management, but it doesn't give you the specifics about, what house to buy, when is a house too big, or, when have you spent too much money on a car, or how much retirement savings do you actually need? Is it too much or is it too less? These are situations where wisdom is required. The Bible doesn't say specifically how to decide in that. It gives us the parameters, but then we have the freedom of choice. And this is where wisdom is required. And so though the Bible is pretty clear on the principles of life, sometimes it can be pretty vague on the specifics of life. You could have a whole host of very good options in life, and many of you have faced these options. 2 good colleges. Which college are you going to go to? 2 awesome job opportunities. Which job are you going to choose? 2 potential spouses. Which one are you going to go with? And in theory, if they're both equally good, it doesn't really matter which one you choose, but you know the one that you choose changes everything. The choice that you make in life changes the whole direction and course of your life. This is where wisdom is required, because both options may look good and feel right, but you know that the choice that you make changes everything. This is where wisdom is required. So first question, what is wisdom? What is wisdom? And here's the first point of your outline. Wisdom is making the best choice possible when the rules don't apply. When you don't have the specifics, do this and don't do that. You have the parameters, you have the principles, and you have the freedom to choose. You need the wisdom to make the best choice possible when the rules don't apply. We find ourselves in these situations all the time. How do I choose when the command isn't all that clear or specific? I need wisdom to make the right choice. For example, you're in a situation where you have to choose. I could lie, or I could tell the truth. Have you ever been there? Of course you have. I could lie, or I could tell the truth. Friends, the Bible is really clear when it talks about honesty. It's really clear. You don't need wisdom for that choice. You need obedience for that choice. But we have found ourselves in situations when it comes to conversations and things that, should I say this or should I not say this? Have you ever been in a situation where you're not quite sure what to say or whether you should say something at all? When do you speak up and when do you shut up? Have you ever been there? There's no clear rule when it comes to entering a conversation or staying out of a conversation. And the Bible sometimes gives us conflicting advice on those situations. For example, Proverbs 12:19 says, truthful lips endure forever. Honesty is the best policy. So the Bible is telling us there, if you have something to say, then you should say it, and you should say it truthfully. Be honest. Speak the truth in love. But in other places of the Bible, like Proverbs 17, it says, even a fool is counted wise when he holds his peace, when he shuts his lips. So just because you have something to say doesn't mean that you should say it. In this situation, you don't need obedience. You really need wisdom. When do you speak up and when do you not speak up? Guys, your wife comes in the room and asks, do these jeans make me look fat? I don't know why she asked that question. That's a no-win for everybody. But, you're in that situation and you could take the Proverbs 12:19 route. You'd be obedient, but you'd be stupid. Or you could take the Proverbs 17 route. You'd be obedient, but she'd be mad at you. I mean, it's really a no. You need wisdom on how to navigate the ambiguities of life. What do you do in these gray areas where the rules aren't specific, where the rules don't apply? And this is the second characteristic of wisdom then. Wisdom is the willingness to seek knowledge. When I don't have enough wisdom, I need to continue to seek the wisdom. Here's the thing. Everyone is born. You were born, I was born. We were all born with the same amount of knowledge. How much? None. None. I came into the world with the same amount of information as you. Absolutely none. And Proverbs will tell us, that wisdom is acquired. Our brains are a blank slate when we are born. It's a blank slate. And some of us haven't added a whole lot since that point. But Proverbs tells us that you've got to seek that. You've got to hunger for that. It tells us that wisdom comprises of two different things, information and insight. Information and insight. Let's look at these two things. Information. Proverbs 15 says, the heart of him who has understanding seeks or hungers after, goes after knowledge. A wise person wants knowledge. A wise person seeks knowledge. A wise person is a smart person. Wisdom assumes knowledge. Now, here's the thing. You cannot be a wise person without being a smart person, without having information, because wisdom requires information. But you can be a smart person and not be a wise person. Okay? You can't be wise without being smart, but you can't be smart without being wise. Do you know anybody that has high intelligence but very low common sense? Don't look at them right now. Don't look at them. But we all know people who have the information, but they don't always use it. You can be smart and not wise. But this is where it starts, with information. Wise people seek to know things. And here's the thing, they don't know everything. Wise people don't know everything. And that's part of what makes them wise. Wise people know that they don't know everything. So wise people listen more than they talk. Wise people ask questions more than they offer advice. Wise people don't mind looking dumb in order to get smart. I mean, were you ever in a classroom where someone asked a dumb question and you were sitting there thinking, man, I'm really glad that they asked that because I didn't know either, right? Okay? They asked the question that everyone else wanted to ask but was too proud to ask it. Friends, that's wisdom at work. Wisdom seeks to help. I tell people all the time, getting help is not a sign of weakness, friends. It is a sign of wisdom. If you need help, go after it. That's a sign of a wise person. If you don't know, find the answer. Ask the questions. Wise people want to learn. They hunger for information. Second, wise people pay attention. This is what insight is all about. Proverbs 2 says, cry out for insight and ask for understanding. Pay attention. Our Creator is a God of order. You look at the universe, you look at our lives. There are patterns to everything. There is an order to life and to our world. There are principles at work in our world and in our lives that when we adhere to those principles, our life just simply goes better. The Bible explains those patterns to us. And we can see if we pay attention, if we have the insight into this, we know that there are consequences to choices. We know that you reap what you sow. We've seen that happen over and over again. And wisdom picks up on that. So that when wisdom begins to make its choices, he understands that there's patterns and there's principles that come into play. Wisdom pays attention to the way things really work. It seeks for information and insight, which leads us to the third characteristic of wisdom. It is the ability to apply knowledge. Wisdom is the ability to apply knowledge. Wise people take the information and insight, and then they use it in their daily lives that benefit them. Now, some of you, through years of gaining information and insight, have been able to use this in many ways in your own life. Some of you can walk into a construction site. I know this because I know you. You can walk into a house or a building, and you can look at all of the mistakes that have been made. And for me or for many other people, we would be blind to those. We wouldn't notice those. But because of the information and the insight that you have, you can pick up on all of those mistakes in that building project. Some of you can listen to a car. Just listen to it. And you know exactly where the problem is coming from. For the rest of us, that's amazing. My wife can spot a bad haircut 10 feet away. Why? Because she's been at this for years. When it comes to hair, she has learned and she has paid attention. She's taken what she knows and she's applied it through years of experience and learning. So here's the deal, friends, and you need to understand, all of us need to understand this. Friends, wisdom is not a gift. Don't go through life and looking at wise people thinking, oh, they were just lucky or God gave them something special. No, wisdom is not a gift. Wisdom is a discipline. Wisdom is a discipline. People aren't born with wisdom. People acquire wisdom through the seeking of knowledge and insight, through the application of what they learn, which means anybody, even you, can be a wise person. So let's stop here for a second and encourage one another. Turn to the person you came with and tell them, even you can be a wise person. Now, don't tell them where they're not wise. Just encourage them. Give them a gift of life. Anybody can become a wise person. You just have to seek wisdom. You just have to seek knowledge and insight and apply that information and insight. So that's what wisdom is. Who needs wisdom? Well, I think we've settled that. Everybody, all of us needs wisdom. None of us are born with it. All of us need it. In fact, Proverbs points to two particular types of people who need it. And all of us have found ourselves in these two particular groups. Proverbs will talk to us about the simple person and the fool. The simple person and the fool. You'll see this all through the book of Proverbs when you begin to read it. All of us start out as simple people. All of us begin as simple people because none of us begin with knowledge. That's what a simple person is, a person without knowledge. And all of us will move from being simple into being a foolish person, a person who ignores knowledge. We've all been there, right? We have been given knowledge, we have learned knowledge, but sometimes we do our own thing or we go our own way, regardless of the knowledge, the truth that we've gained. So the goal is to become a wise person, to move from being simple or foolish to a person who seeks knowledge and information, who applies information and insight. So let's talk about these two people. The simple. Proverbs 1 says, for the waywardness of the simple will, boy, this is really serious. For the waywardness of the simple will kill them. Will kill them. If you are simple, it is destructive. It will kill you to remain simple. Why do children touch a hot stove? Or run out into the street? Or put knives into electrical sockets? Because they're simple. This is the definition of simple, because they don't know any better. Now, it's not that they can't know, it's just that they don't know. They need to be taught. That's why they have parents. Because someone needs to give them the knowledge and the insight they need because they don't have it. They need to acquire it from someone who knows. And they don't know that they don't know. They're simple. But then that simple person grows up And they get into the stage where they know some stuff, but they don't know all stuff. They think they know more than they really know, and they certainly think they know more than you, and they don't know that they don't know. So they move from simple to foolish. Now, kids, if there's any young people in the room, we love you. We've all been there. This is why you have parents, to protect you from yourself. Because let me tell you this, simple is not stupid. It's just that you don't know. And simple is not foolish. Because there are foolish people that have information. They just don't listen to it. They just don't apply it. Simple is just uninformed. You need someone to give you the information and the insight that you need to make the wise decision. Because here's what happens when we're at this stage of development. We go through life wanting to be accepted. We want to be included. We want to fit in. This is the most important thing to us at this stage of life. And so you will choose the popular thing over the right thing or over the wise thing so that you can fit in, and you get yourself into all kinds of trouble. You've made some very unwise choices because you care too much about what other people think. You're listening to other people and not applying the right knowledge and the right information. And so you create all kinds of problems for yourself. And years later, as you move into the adult life, hopefully into a wise stage of life, and you look back on some of those decisions and you think to yourself, why did I ever do that? Any adults there? Why did I ever think that was a good thing? Why did I ever think I could get away with that? Why did I ever think that was a good, because you didn't know enough you were thinking too much about what other people thought. You weren't wise enough to make the wise choice. That's why you have parents telling you not to make that choice. And I know you think they're old and out of date. But young people, they have something that you don't have. They have time and experience. They've been through that. They've made the same foolish mistakes. They're trying to keep you from making those same mistakes. They're wanting you to gain the information and the insight that you do not have to make wiser choices. Now, and here's the thing, this can apply to anybody. Once you get into the adult stage, that doesn't automatically make you wise. You can still be simple, you can still be foolish. We fall into this category in many areas of our life. So this can apply to anybody. Think about the areas of your life. Some of us have difficulty managing our money. Why is that? We get ourselves into all kinds of financial trouble. Well, maybe you weren't taught how to manage money. That's not your fault. You just don't know. So what do? Well, a wise person finds out. Go to Financial Peace. It's going to start a week from Monday. Gain the principles that you need to manage money well. Find somebody that knows how to manage money and learn from them. Just don't go off in a foolish way and keep destroying your life. Find someone who has the knowledge that you need and then apply that knowledge. Some of you don't know how to communicate with your spouse. Well, nobody knows how to do that. So you find somebody that's learned how to do it well, and then you learn from them. Just don't go through life destroying your relationships. Somebody's further along than you, so listen to them and learn from them and apply what you're learning. Don't be stupid. Don't be foolish. Gain wisdom and insight and information and apply that information. You've been addicted for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Guess what? It's not going to change. It is not going to change. Wishing it is not going to change it. Intentions, as good as they are, is not going to change it. Go to counseling. Go to Celebrate Recovery. Get into a structured program that targets. Friends, wisdom is not a gift, it's a discipline. If you're destroying your life through harmful choices, you don't have to be stuck there. You just have to be wise to seek the information and the insight that you need to make better choices. Read a book, go to counseling, stay in a small group, hunger for knowledge and insight. Because if you don't, here's the problem. This is where a simple person becomes a foolish person. Proverbs 12 says, the way of fools seems right to them, but the wise listen to advice. The way of the fools seems right to them. This is a foolish person. Information is available, but they reject it. They refuse it. They don't listen to it. Where a simple person cares too much about what other people think and they go along with the crowd, getting themselves into trouble, a foolish person doesn't care about what anyone thinks. He just goes his own way and does his own thing. He's wise in his own eyes. You can't tell a fool anything. You can't convince him of anything. He won't listen to you. You can't correct him. He's self-righteous and opinionated. Simple and fool. The simpleton isn't stupid. He's just naive. He doesn't know. The fool isn't stupid. He has information, but he's too proud to take it. He thinks he already knows. And the Bible says that pride goes before a fall. Why is that? Why does pride precede destruction? Because, friends, proud people don't listen. You think you know it all? Then you're not going to listen to truth. You think you have all the answers? Then you're not going to consider another option. Wise people, a person who seeks information and insight, they want to know. And they know that they don't know it all, and so they continue to learn. They want to know how to navigate the complexities of life. Friends, everyone is born simple. We start out with a lack of knowledge and insight. All of us move into this foolish stage because all of us at times go our own way and we ignore the truth. But you don't have to stay there. Wisdom is not a gift. Wisdom is a discipline, so all of us can become wise. James 1:5 says, if you lack wisdom, ask God. If there's one thing that God wants you to have, it's wisdom to navigate the complexities of life. So how do you get it? That's the final question. And where do you get it? And very simply, we've just read it in Proverbs 1:7. You get it from the one who created wisdom, from the source of wisdom. It says it again in Proverbs 9:10. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Read that with me, would you? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Say it again. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Here's a wise person in a nutshell. A wise person doesn't give in to what you think. He doesn't go along with the crowd, doesn't surrender to peer pressure, because he knows that there's truth out there and that you don't have it all. Nor does he ignore what you have to think, because he realizes that he doesn't know it all and there's other opinions or perspectives. But what he cares most about is what God thinks, what God knows. And so he weighs everything that he gains, everything that he hears against the knowledge of God. This is why we read the Bible. This is why we come here every Sunday morning to gain truth, so that whatever advice, whatever wisdom we think we're gaining, we compare it to the Word of God. So wherever you are, wherever you're at in life, you are where you are because of the choices you made, and you look at your life. And here's the deal, friends. You look at your life, you have one perspective on that life. Only one. Just one perspective. That's all of life, friends. You can only look at one thing from one direction. For example, this happens a lot. You've witnessed an accident on I-65. There's been an accident, and you witness the authorities come up. They want to, make a report of the accident, and they interview as many witnesses as they can find for this accident. They talk to you. So why don't they just take your story and run with it? Why isn't your perspective, all that's necessary? Because they realize that there are all kinds of other perspectives to this story, and so they need to get the whole story. They need all of the truth on this accident. Whether you might have been in the northbound lane, you might have been in the southbound lane, you might have been standing on the side of the road watching it or driving over the overpass. You might have been in a plane and saw it from the sky. Whatever your perspective was that one perspective. You witnessed the accident from your point of view only. What you saw was limited to your own perspective. But it takes all perspectives to get the whole story. Now, here's the thing. Perfect wisdom would be to see things from God's perspective, because God is the only one that sees it all. I mean, he's the one that knows the beginning from the end. He's omniscient. He has full knowledge. He has full wisdom. We don't have that advantage. We only have our perspective. And so here's the thing. When you talk about the simple person and the fool and the wise person, a simple person thinks that there's only one perspective. And he gets himself into trouble not realizing that life is much more complicated than that. You need to consult other perspectives. A fool is wise in his own eyes, so his perspective is the only one that matters. He doesn't care about anyone else's perspective. And so he gets himself into trouble because he refuses to consider other points of view. But a wise person realizes that he has a perspective, but it's not the only perspective. He knows that there's more sides to the story, that there's a lot of gray area to the issues of life that he needs information and insight on to make wise choices as he navigates the journey of life. And so he's always hungry for more knowledge and insight, and acknowledges that the true source of knowledge and insight is the fear of the Lord. The fear of the Lord. What is the fear of the Lord? In the Bible, fear is talked about in two different ways. In places, fear is talked about as a negative thing. Over 300 times, the Bible will tell us, do not be afraid. Fear not. Fear is a negative thing. But just about almost as many times in the Bible, you will see that phrase, fear the Lord. Fear the Lord. So which is it? What is the deal with this thing about fear? There's two ways to think about fear when it comes to God, or for anyone else for that matter. There's a negative fear, and then there's a positive fear. Two ways to be afraid in the presence of someone, a negative way and a positive way. Negative fear, friends, is ask the question, what are you going to do to me? When you're afraid, you're concerned about what's going to happen to you. What is this situation going to do to me? What is this person going to do to me? What's going to happen to me? It's self-focused and it's self-centered. And so when it comes to God, when you have this negative fear, you're living your life asking the question, what is God going to do to me? If I don't get it right, how is he going to treat me? I've got to obey him, or else. If I don't make him happy, he'll punish me. If I don't please him, he'll condemn me. If I don't do all the right things, if I don't stay on his good side, good things won't come to me. And a lot of people approach God in that way. They think that if they do anything wrong, God is out to get them. Friends, that's a negative fear to approach God. A lot of people think of God in that way, but the Bible doesn't talk about negative fear when it talks about the fear of God. It talks about a positive fear. What does it mean when the Bible tells us to fear God? He tells us to fear God. Well, there are many ways to explain this, but I thought of this this week when I was preparing this. Many of you have been there. Do you remember the first time that you held an infant? I mean an infant. Someone placed into your arms a week-old, sometimes a day-old, sometimes an hours-old human being. Do you remember how nervous you were? How on guard you were? I remember when my first child was born, this happened in the birthing room. She was minutes old, and the doctor handed me Katie, and I wasn't even sure that I wanted to take her. My arms weren't even out yet. I remember the doctor saying to me, go ahead, take her. She won't bite. She won't bite. She's not going to do anything to you. That wasn't my problem. I wasn't afraid that what she was going to do to me. I was afraid of what I was going to do to her. And you look at this gift and you ask yourself, how am I ever going to be the father that she deserves? How am I ever going to provide in a way that she needs? How am I ever going to love this creature that is so far beyond what I could ever have asked for or imagined? You just stand in such awe and wonder of what God has done for you, what God has given you. And so you're always thinking about what you can do in response to what they have done. Friends, that's what the Bible means when it talks about the fear of God. To fear the Lord means to understand who God is and what God has done for you. He's the Lord of the universe. He gives life, he takes life. That requires reverence and respect, but you have to understand, he would not have created you without the intention to love you. He gave you a life that is good and full of purpose. You don't need to be afraid of what God might do to you. Your problem is what you might do to him, or what you might do to yourself if you ignore this wondrous gift. That's the starting point of wisdom. When you understand who God is and what he has done for you, you're on this constant quest to know him more and more, to understand him more and more, and to learn how to respond to him and follow him and do the things that he tells us to do. Friends, he's not out to make our lives miserable. He's out to give us abundant life. Wisdom is not caring about what others think. It's not caring about what you think. It's caring about what the God of the universe, the giver of life, thinks about your life, and to follow that knowledge and insight, to know that God is for you and not against you, to know that the life God gives you is good. It's a blessing and not a burden, to understand how much he loves you, and when he tells you to do things, this is for your life and for your good. Do you understand what he wants for you? And so we fear him, not because he's out to hurt us, but because he's out to grow us. Not because he wants to destroy us, but because he wants to develop us, to give us life. Psalm 130, verse 4 says this, "But with you there is forgiveness, that you may be" what? Now, you would think that David would have said, loved. We get forgiveness, so we love you. Or worshiped, or even obeyed. You forgave us, so God, we should obey you. But he doesn't say that. He says, you've given us forgiveness, and so we fear you. In other words, we stand in awe of you. We stand in wonder of you. Friends, this verse describes the Christian life. To understand who God is and what God has done for you, that he has loved you, that he has died for you, that you stand in awe and wonder of the cross. When you look at the cross and you consider all that went into the cross for your redemption, for your forgiveness, when you understand that gift, you come to grips with the truth about you. You come to a place of honesty and you have to admit, I've been wise in my own eyes. I've gone my own way. I've done my own thing. It's hurt me. It's hurt others. It's hurt my life. It has not worked. The only logical response is to search and to seek for and to follow after the source of life and the source of wisdom, to fear God, not because of what he could do to you, but because of what you could do to yourself if you don't. How could I ever offend the one who loves me that much? And so I want as much knowledge and insight from him to live the life that he died to give me. Friends, that's where wisdom begins. The more you seek him, the more wise you become. Now, if you're not a Christian, this is where you start. You start with the acknowledgement that you've been wise in your own eyes, doing your own thing, and you're ready to change that. You're ready to change that perspective. You're ready to surrender your life to the one who is the author of life, the Redeemer of life, who offers you life in the truth and the wisdom of his Son. If you need to make that decision, I want you to make that decision right where you sit. I want to know about it. I'm going to be in front of the stage after the service. I'd love to answer any questions or pray with you if you need that, if you have that concern. But don't leave this room without realizing that the only wisdom available is from the one who created it, the one who created you and loved you enough to die for you. Would you pray with me? Father, thank you for giving us this life. Father, may we not be foolish in the way we live our lives. May we not waste our life being simple or foolish, but may we seek after you and submit to the truth that you give us through your Son, Jesus Christ. May we follow him to receive the life he died to give us. Bless our gifts and our offerings, Father, as we continue on. In Jesus' name, amen.